We're live. Water when I'm thirsty. Drink.
Sorry, I wasn't quick enough on the draw. I thought I had the countdown to the keyboard stick thing. Yeah. Anyway, good night, everybody. Welcome to Water for the Thirstiest, the word simply the word refreshing. Last week we had the fellas. This week the ladies are back, and then we have Jerry here. So it's a balance, we'll balance it. We have been reading since the last time we've been together. Corinthians, Matthew, Joshua, Psalms, Deuteronomy, all of that. And so our conversation may come from that tonight. No, it will. It will. But before we get there, we was having a little conversation offline, and I told Jerry, hold that thought before we go on, so that we could all be a part of the conversation. So, Jerry, I'm gonna turn to you to continue your thought.
Just tied into that comment you made about living out loud, right? I think we like to use examples of different imperfect people in the Bible that God did all these great things through. The only perfect person he ever used was Jesus. We accepted that. Great. I am curious to see what level of grace was that was exhibited to these imperfect people at that time. Hindsight is always 2020. But could you imagine the church folk? Because Jesus said, God says of David, he's a man perfect and upright after my own heart, right? That Moses was the most humble man, and what did the kinfolk of Moses and David, and most for the church folk, think? This guy who was a murderer, this guy who killed his best friend, because Uriah was one of his mighty men of valor, right?
Yes, one of his homies.
You kill your homie, knock off his wife. I mean, so we see how God was able to turn those situations around when they submitted to God, right? But it's I'm always curious what they thought, what people around them would have thought and said, and all the little corridor conversations about, remember that? I heard that about David, you see, same thing I told you. It's and then I contrast that to what we do even now, where people mess up, and as much as we should be, forgiving and extending grace and trying to pray with them and understand why and see them transformed, it's the same type of corridor conversations, and they're passing by, so don't say I said, but
the interesting thing, the books are not written contemporaneously. They're written hindsight afterwards, after the story has been told, and then the people who write the stories tell the stories based on the outcome. So it's difficult to know what the people were thinking in the time because of when the stories get written. That's a good question. I would assume that Jesus' statement, a prophet is never honored in his hometown or his own home, would be some kind of indication of what they thought. Not very much, except when they were doing stuff for him. They say, the story writers say David was getting all this attention and he was getting all this praise when he was,
right.
And then his own son was trying to kill him twice. He had two sons who tried to kill him. So, they weren't really thinking that high of him. There was stories of when his son was trying to kill him, he was leaving, a man was cursing at him and kicking up dust and throwing stones at him. So, yeah, you're right. We romanticize the stories and we read them in hindsight.
Yep. I also wonder if some of the people that we because we look at some of these religious leaders or just leaders in general who have indiscretion, falls from grace, any number of things, and I just wonder if we're so busy writing their story and commenting on the story now while having no clue what the state of their heart is and how God may or may not turn the story around if they submit it to him. And then, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, should the Lord tarry, it's like, that was a thing because this guy is
Yeah,
it
I
Peter
know.
or Paul or David 2.0, right?
Yeah, I know somebody like that right now who exists right now. Henry Wright is like that.
Really?
Yeah, he had an indiscretion. That's how he ended up in the white people conference. And the black people wouldn't touch him. And now you wouldn't you oh, that was on his record? Oh, okay. Okay.
Wow. Gotcha.
And I'm sure people like you didn't even know that, right?
Didn't have a clue. Nope.
See, he's one of those people. And
I have like the whole collection of his sermons. I was just like, yeah, good dude.
it happens when you don't know people's stories. But sometimes the stories are helpful and sometimes they're irrelevant.
And actually, it that being the case, that actually makes that story makes his sermons even more relevant, I think, because now it's not just academic. I'm speaking from a place of experience. So
Right.
I tell people, all learning doesn't have to be experiential.
Right.
God would much rather we learn from instruction than experience. But he knows people like me, pretty much knuckleheads, and we like to learn from experience, right?
Mhm.
That said, though, it's like I always remember, I think it was for the Grammy Awards one year. CC Winans was singing with Jennifer Hudson. Jennifer has a way better range, right?
And
But the
CC,
way CC sang that song, or some gospel song, I can't
you
remember what
think
it.
Jennifer Hudson has a better range than CC Winan? You think so?
Let's just say academically, right?
Oh yeah, I'll go with what you make the point you're making. Go ahead.
Right, yeah. But because CC was singing from a place of experience, it's just a different, So going back to the Henry Wright thing, it's like, well, I can speak with authority on something haven't gone through. You know what I mean? This is not just, and I think that will resonate with some people who definitely either went through the same thing, thinking about going through it, or definitely don't want to, and they want a resource that is like, yeah, you actually know where this can land, matter of factly. So let me get some good advice from.
But not everybody is turn the corner like that. There are a lot of people, depending on the nature of your thing, you almost have to move and go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's more meandering. Yeah.
Because the people who know you where you are just keep remembering what you did
And keep reminding you.
and keep reminding you, or
Could you
saying
could
that
you
they can't,
imagine?
or blocking against the ability to receive from you because
Mhm.
of, you know.
Could you imagine the people who witness Peter cussing out everybody that he don't know the so and so man, and then he goes to stand up in a church to preach? Poor Pablo. People like this dude last week was cussing everybody out.
Yeah,
Or even probably what's his name, Saul, who became Paul.
Pablo,
Because
Srika partner.
who is to say he goes to preach in some church and there are relatives there of some Christian that he killed?
Well, he experienced that, and I think Acts documents that the people were resistant and they run him out of town in certain places.
Yep.
Yeah, they couldn't say, is that the same man? Nah, can't be the same man. And somebody had to come and vouch for him before he got any mediocre. And he just had to expand his ministry into something else. And it's us in the future and the people who had no knowledge of what he was before. Like, so he could get up and give his testimony. But if the testimony I given don't directly affect you,
Yeah.
then it's a nice
Then it
story.
might be beneficial.
It's a nice story.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a hard thing when you're in the limelight and but it's an interesting thing that they didn't have anybody in this who's not like that.
Yeah.
And yet we look at them and we look at
Pillars
them,
of faith.
yeah, pillars of faith. And then we look at these other people and go, shame on you, cancel. I know some people still can't listen to Israel Horton sing now.
You serious?
Yeah, still. You'll never get over that in some people I know personally.
All right.
They don't even play his records anymore.
Can you? This might be a hard one for the people. Some people may say you have to practice what you preach. Can you be preaching what you don't practice?
Yes. Um, so there are a couple of perspectives that I have on that.
Mm.
One is when we use our boy Peter. When Peter say, "I don't tell Jesus I'm ready to die for you," and then get up the next day, before the cock crow the next day, say, "I ain't want to do it." Was he not practicing what he was preaching? When David decided that game was looking real nice. Yes, that's my part, nothing but send for she. We handle the business. Was he not practicing when he preaching? I mean,
I don't have an opinion. I'm a hypocrite. But
no, I, are you a hypocrite or are you someone who just is a little bit more transparent about what you're dealing with?
that could be it. Um,
I think it depends.
it's
I
the what?
think
It depends on what.
I think it depends because like there's a difference between saying, "Oh, you need to do better. You're failing. You're not doing what," and you're also failing. Like there's a difference. Now, if you're saying, "Hey, I'm struggling. We're struggling. This is what we should be doing. This is the path we should be taking," that's a totally different. That's a totally different thing. You're saying this is the path I've chosen to go down. I'm not acing. I'm not doing 100%, but I'm not telling you that, hey, I'm doing it all. Everything is great. Everything's great over here. I'm not making no mistakes. You need to be like me. You need to get your stuff together. That's a whole different thing.
Wait, does anybody really believe that though? Like, is anybody really out here believing that nobody's making mistakes?
I think
Yes.
there are people who
Yes.
act like it. Yeah.
There is the
People
expectation.
with those expectations, yes. That's why we're so disappointed when people fall. That is
That's
exactly why.
wild.
It is
But-
wild.
but-
It is wild.
I think Jared, your point about Sharika being more transparent than most hit the nail on the head. Because here's the thing: if you have those expectations of people, it's because you have those expectations of yourself.
Yeah.
And you are actually making it more difficult for God to work in and through you because you actually approaching Him with pride. You're not actually being humble or transparent, and you have this idea that God touches you and you will never
But that doesn't
walk
come out
again.
of
Sometimes God delivers you from a thing, sometimes He delivers you in a thing. It's any number of things. But I think it's two pieces of attitude. One is the attitude of the person who's done the wrong thing. If they're repentant, we should approach it differently than if they're obstinate. But then it's also our attitude, like Lauren was saying, where we could have a conversation and be like, "Yo, bro, I really didn't look fair there. Here's how we could do. You want to talk about it?" As opposed to you.
Yeah, but to Tarika's point, yeah, I didn't look for you there, but for the grace of God, that could be me. So
Correct.
which is it? Yeah, I didn't look for you there, or but for the grace of God, that could
I think
be
it's
me.
about for the grace of God. And if the person is being obstinate about it, then even that leave up to God. You don't need to. Because here's the thing: if somebody's, we only change based on the level of our conviction, not our comprehension. So if academically I know something is wrong, but I'm not convicted about it, Jared, Sharika, nobody could tell me to make me. You know what I mean? So if you're talking to me and you realize, wait now, Jerry really not repentant about this thing, probably pray for me, but beating me over the head with the
Here's a
I
challenge
mean,
I have there. Go ahead, Sharika.
maybe it's because I never have an opinion, right? Like I only give my opinion when they're requested. Very big on that. And so if you request my opinion and I'm like, Jerry, you're trash. You can't be vexed with me. You asked me my opinion. That does that mean that I'm not trash? No, sir, buddy. I'm just as trash. But you asked me my opinion.
correct.
You see what I'm saying? And so again, that some people might say that's hypocritical. But I see it as, hey, listen, I'm not ranking sin around these parts. So my sin may not be gluttony. My sin may not be arsony. Who knows?
Cake.
And that's it there, Sharika. We say my sin might not be, and I'm just talking about we as in general,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Instead of saying that is my sin. Yours just look different than mine. But
Correct.
my sin is that.
You
It
know,
is,
it's funny.
it is me wanting whatever this is more than that. And I choose this, whatever it is.
No, and I always repeat what you've said years ago. I was like, yo, everyone's like, oh, that person's selfish. We're all selfish. It just comes out in different ways, right?
Correct.
Like, and you're selfish, and sin is ranked in and loaded with your selfishness. It is what it is. Like, don't let nobody feel too special because you call them selfish. We're all selfish. It just doesn't work for you, right? So I'm with you. I think sometimes we want better for people, or I can even say for myself, I might see a young person or even an older person. I don't think age matters sometimes. Where I'm just like, yo, I don't want you to do the same dumb stuff that I'm doing, right? And so I might be like, hey, yo, hello, hi, like, what are you doing? And you're like, you're above this. You know what I mean? You gotta
Some
be.
behaviors are definitely should be the things that we should avoid because they're not beneficial, right? Like,
No, I also think I was talking to my mother about this the other day. There's some people who have addictive personalities, right? This is not an excuse to sin, folks. I'm putting that out there. Some people have addictive personalities. I don't, right? So you might see me one day with an edible, and you might find that to be very disturbing for you. But guess what, Lorraine? You shouldn't eat though. Don't be like me because you have an addictive personality. I may not take this again for another 3-4 months, right? Like, and some people might say that's hypocritical, but I'm saying that that's a world where it's like, I want better for you. I know who you are. I know what this can be for you. I don't know.
yeah.
Henrik, fix your face. You came on here with the grim. What's really going on?
Wow.
No, I thought I was on the wrong show.
It was edible.
Kendrick always knows how to make an entrance.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh, Henrik, you look like you got lighter.
It's the
It's
light.
lighting. It's the lighting.
Yeah,
Lighter? I mean, you was already light skinned, but
Blowing.
Jared, you know what it is with that hierarchy of sin thing? The fact is the price for sin was the same.
no, it wasn't. Don't say that.
The price for sin was the same.
The ultimate price was, but there was a couple of down payments that were made along the way.
I hear you, but fundamentally, Christ died. So why am I having this conversation? I had to stop myself.
There's some hefty down payments made along the way. 2 goats, not one this time. Like, you did some dumb stuff.
You notice we all didn't say
Jerry,
anything.
Jerry, you know what was the most transformative idea for me is that sin started in heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and that the first expression of sin here on earth was eating fruit. Right? So when we start to talk about I didn't look for you there.
Yeah. It's kind of.
Well, let's go to the first thing that is Bible recorded Jesus was tempted with in the wilderness was to feed himself.
Yeah. What is wrong with feeding yourself?
Right? So if we are making these assessments of other people based on let's go back to the garden. First they eat fruit, then the next thing was murder, and then it was all evil all the time.
It escalated very quickly.
Very quickly, 0 to 1,000, real quick.
Right? But that's to make the point that but it was all the same thing. So yes, some of these things had more, impact than is, more people are impacted. But like when we doing that, because guys were Courtney, Kendrick, Cliff, we were reflecting on I'll go backwards a little bit. A friend of mine who was living out loud, and by living out loud meaning allowing internal struggles to show while still trying to walk straight and narrow, was transformational for me and my life. And she recently passed. And so we was talking about her. And as I was reflecting on how significant a transformative moment that was for me without actually talking to her, just watching her from a distance, Jerry was reflecting on the characters in the scripture and how flawed they all are, and yet we revere them. But in contemporaneous times, we don't have the same kind of grace and patience for the people. And he was wondering out loud, what the people of their time considered of them, and why we don't, why we a little bit more or less forgiving of individuals, particularly those who out front, as servants of God who are failing. And so that's kind of where our conversation was and what you walked in on as you came in. So if you had any thoughts on that, we were kind of saying just before I walked it back. So that's why I want to give my thought now. If it's all the same thing, why are we like that?
Because the consequences are different. I think our earthly consequences are very different. Like a guilty verdict doesn't equal the same consequence across the board. We've been weighing civilization from day one. And so people have taken the weight of the earth and tried to make it salvific and or heavenly. Because that's the best way to understand it.
Okay. Well, I can see that. Kamiki looked like he was about to say something.
I think that so I've been watching like YouTube recently, and like all the commentaries about like different things. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be, it could be on Sharika's edibles, or it could be on, or something has to do with church, or something has to do with something, whatever. And what I, kind of with this, I think that I think that we people just like to make like rules and ideas in order to make sure that we're okay, like we're doing better than, but it's you, so that I feel I just I think it's kind of just I think it's for me it's kind of that is that is that simple. um I was getting annoyed because I was listening to this guy comment, um um well, something that has to do with oh, they were commenting on like Rihanna, I guess, on the magazine cover and some other stuff, and everybody was just like, you know Jesus is coming because everybody's always coming after Christianity and da 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 da. What? And I was like, guys, like, number one, Christianity came after. I mean, Western Christianity came after everybody. So I was like, y'all were just. I mean, that's why people come up. But it's like, it's not really that. It's not that complicated. Like we have gone out and we've said you can't do this, and then we'll do that, right? And so I think it's for me, it's literally, I just think people just like to have the idea. I think we like to have the idea that we're doing better than we are, and it's more comfortable to see that somebody else is doing something. It's a little worse, and we're okay.
Gotcha.
I had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago, but this would be classified as an outsider versus an insider, right? And one of the statements that was made is, "You guys shouldn't be doing what we're doing."
Where's the fun in that? I'm sorry.
And you're saying outsider,
Meaning a non-believer.
non-believer? Okay.
Yeah, the comment was, it was along the lines of, so the context, they were talking about leaders, pastors, and so forth. And um, they were very bothered by, I guess like it was a commercial or something of a speaker that came up, and they were like, they can't even like look at it, and they were saying like, I guess because of news or whatever, they're like you shouldn't be out there doing what we're doing. Like you can't sit up there and tell me do this, 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 and how I need to live, and you're out there doing exactly what I'm doing. Like where's the difference between you and me? And it was a very Howard conversation.
I always find that to be interesting where people try to justify their foolishness by saying that I shouldn't or they shouldn't, right? Like did they give you an example of like what I shouldn't be doing and they like what's that?
No, it wasn't even like it was them saying like I know I know I live like how I live and I shouldn't live like this, but I know that. Like, but you're out there saying do A, B, C, D, and you're doing the exact same thing that I'm doing.
Right, and I'm saying like, I would love an example, like a real life example of like so for me, let's put religion aside.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just live in the civil law. What is it that they think that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing and it's okay for them to do? Because I think
a lot of saying it's okay.
No. What I'm saying is like they're ranking it in that like, oh, I know I'm doing it and I'm trash.
So let's do it like this, Rika. Let's say I'm a police officer, a traffic cop, and I'm out here giving people tickets for parking illegally and speeding and whatnot. And then you find out that I have a whole rack of speeding tickets on my personal vehicle because there's an expectation that if you could enforce the law, that you're abiding by it. And that your enforcement of the law suggests that you will, even if you're doing something wrong, it won't be the laws that you are responsible for enforcing because you know them.
But that's not the way life works.
That's what I was gonna say. That's so unrealistic.
And that's what the expectation is.
So if I'm a cop,
if you're a doctor, you shouldn't be smoking, because you know better, doctor.
Well, those examples were given, but they're like, this is different. This is not the same as those. Like spiritual things are not the same as those.
Can I give an example from my personal life? I have adopted a vegan plant-based lifestyle, and I find that other people kind of police me on the things I should eat or shouldn't eat. So if we're out publicly, if there's a buffet of some sort, they'll be like, "Oh, you can't eat that," or that has that in there, So even in my mind, if I wanted to take a day off and let me go ahead and do something else, they own me. They watching me. It don't even matter where I'm at. Like it's just like, oh, you can't have that
from being vegan.
But why not? That's what Shrika said. Like, why not?
Because then you're not vegan.
Oh, okay. So that's my experience. It's like
that's true.
To that agree like that.
But
no, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, I know.
I know some vegans who want oxtail gravy on their rice. Like that's the type of life they live.
Just a taste.
But okay, so hold on. So being Lucifer's advocate, can you call yourself vegan if you aren't?
If I backslide,
abiding by the vegan principles.
If I had a moment, what if you go eat something and maybe it had butter in it or something in there?
No,
you're like, it's got egg in it. Dang, I didn't know that.
I remember this lady. I won't mention her name, and her testimony was like, I've been vegetarian for like 40 years. And then she was at an event and she was killing these turkey bites, but she thought they were vegetarian.
Right.
She knew better.
And I was like, you just lost. You gotta start all
The
over.
clock just restarted for you. The clock
Yeah,
just
you're just not
See?
like you're not whatever you thought you were. You're not anymore.
You're not it.
So now you actually.
Right.
But I mean, so is she?
Yeah. Here's the thing.
You ain't vegetarian no more. You
Before I take
spent 3.5
Sarika,
hours killing this turkey.
let me just include this comment. If I had someone say the same thing to me, and they said it's because we profess something and they don't profess anything. Back to what Sharika was saying. They do what they do, but they don't claim to be anything. It's about living up to what you claim.
But here's what do I claim that's biblical but not moral? This is what I want to know. Right?
Let's
if we go back to bare bones, right? Like, and I like people tell me, "Oh, you claim the Sabbath." No, I claim a day of rest. And based on the calendar, I'm saying it's Saturday. You're absolutely right, right? But science shows that we need days of rest and that we're better people of days of rest. And the Catholic Church and the Christian Church in most cases treat Sunday like a day of rest. So what exactly am I proclaiming that's not morally sound, that won't get me in some trouble in some way, shape, or form? And I don't mean like governmental trouble, just even my bodily harm trouble. Like if you don't do certain things.
But I think that's kind of what I took from the statement that was just put up and kind of what Courtney's saying is that. So it's from that statement, it sounds like there are things that you profess and then people then lay whatever their ideas or thoughts are of that particular thing and what that looks like, and then
But
we were that expectation.
No, we were talking Lorraine's situation was believer, non-believer. So that's what I'm trying. Like, I get what Courtney is saying with veganism and vegetarianism and carnivorism. That makes sense. But when he talks to believer and unbeliever, I would love an example of what am I professing as a believer that a non-believer would say, "You're crossing the line there, Shariga. That's pushing it."
It's not about.
It depends on what it is.
But I actually, that's my point.
Pick one. It's alcohol. It could be like 100 different things.
Alcohol is not against Christianity.
So it depends on which flavor of Christianity you belong to.
But that's why I wanted to know the example, because I think a lot of people think when they say, "Oh, a believer is an umbrella of every situation that you could probably answer to a higher power." And I'm not saying that's where we are with this, but by definition, that's what it is. A 7-day Church of God is different from a 7-day Adventist, different from a Jew Christ, different from whoever. And so it's like, what are we talking about here?
So the unbeliever believer is me describing the context. So this is somebody who is not in the church, not associated with any denomination, any spiritual faith, right? They do believe there is a God, right? And they were saying that when they were watching, the speaker that came up on the TV prompted like irritation and like negative words, attitudes, all of it just started. And it was like, "Oh, I can't even watch this because, they go up there and they tell you do blah, 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 blah. And you're out there doing what I'm doing. Like, if you're saying do all these right things and how you're supposed to live, and you're out here doing what I'm doing, like, you're supposed to be different from me. You're not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. We're not supposed to both be out here doing the same thing. Because, like, what's the point of me?
So they can't listen. They can't listen to that because
you're out here with me.
They're doing.
That's foolish. No disrespect to whoever the person is if you're listening. And I'm going to tell you how it's no different. Just because this person got a broadcast, me talking to Cliff on the side and telling Cliff, "Hey, something that I did or he did or whatever." Someone has a platform and someone doesn't. I'm still not understanding if you are on a leader. I don't care.
They emphasize the leaders, the people.
And maybe it's because I don't value. That's a bad thing to say. Okay.
But you may not be alone, so say it.
Say how you feel, right?
I don't value church leadership like that, to put them on a pedestal just to say, well, because you decided to ordain yourself. In my opinion, we are all called to spread the gospel. You went on stage and decided that you wanted to take a 5-figure salary. I decided on a 6-figure salary. I'm looking for a 7-figure salary. You know what I mean? We all have the same obligation to profess the gospel and to be examples of Christ. And so for me, if you're a believer, whether you want to go to church Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or none at all, At the end of the day, you're both saying we're united by this one God. Now, if we're not united by this one God, I hear you. But if we're saying, oh, because you decided to put your good suit on or dress or whatever and get a platform, oh, you shouldn't be saying that. You think God is out here weighing us like that? Like people really believe that?
So
Yes.
isn't there a verse that talks about
Absolutely. That's why
Yeah.
it's the thing.
They 100% believe
They
it.
actually are.
That's wild.
It is wild.
Like,
And here's why it's wild. Because those same people, as Jerry pointed out, are reading about Abraham and David
the same
and
way.
Paul and holding them in a whole different light than the
So-
people they don't want to listen to up there.
So, Jared, if I could actually
No,
use
but this is
one of the
something-
examples that had me thinking about it.
Hold on, Jerry. Let me give Mezzo
Sorry.
a voice and then keep your thought. I'm coming straight back to you. I just want to leave this here. In my case, the person wasn't claiming morality. They actually lived the opposite, but then said others who claim Christianity, who engage in immorality with them, then had them thinking less of the one who professed and did
Right.
the opposite.
So Mezzo, can you
what
give
I'm
us
talking about.
Mezzo without telling us all the juice because I really want it. Can you give us the example here? I am struggling with
So
grounding this thing.
Isn't
And
there
I-
a Bible verse though that talks about the weight or the responsibility of being a shepherd, like of sheep, like as a pastor or whatever?
There are a few of them.
So what does it say?
I
Is there
think
no
it's-
higher
is it-
responsibility
is
or
it like-
anything?
It's like Titus or Timothy.
I feel like
starts
all of
talking,
those
like,
went
it's
away
the
after
deacons and all that
Christ.
stuff.
I mean, I knew like the Levites and certain priests had stuff to do, but I feel like after Christ came, veil dropped. All of y'all are flat. This is a flat structure at this point. But I might be interpreting this the wrong way.
Jerry.
So one of the examples I was actually thinking of that brought all this to mind was this whole thing with you've ever looked at anything with Tim Ross basement side B?
Yes.
And
Say
Tim
that
Ross
again?
has sorry,
Say that one more time. I didn't hear you.
Tim Ross. He has two podcasts, Side B and The Basement,
Mm.
and he has famously Christian podcaster, right? Former church pastor, youth leader, blah 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 blah. But chocolate. He has famously dropped some f bombs on his podcast.
Yeah,
And,
he used the word, the N word, because he went on the Breakfast Club and was saying it over and over and over again.
Well, those times I don't have an issue with the right, but yeah, but so he drops a couple of bombs in a particular context, talking about like child sex trafficking and stuff. And again, it's just maybe that's a good example, Sharika, where people are like, well, you're a Christian, you're a leader, so you should not use that language at all under any circumstance, let alone publicly because X. And he's like, he understands what they're saying, where they're coming from, but he couldn't think. And I mean, he has a very quote unquote verbose linguistical repertoire, right? He's well read, well educated. And he's like, when it came to that subject, there was no more impactful or no better word he could have used than this is up, right?
Right, but Jerry,
Um,
even that is not a spiritual thing. Society has said that that's a bad word.
Right, but that is
But Sharika,
that is the example that I think is we do this, you should not do that. We're not saying it right. We think it's wild. We think it's any number of things, but that is just the type of hierarchy we build out. And then to the broader point we were discussing, we revere Peter, and Peter this and Peter this, and Peter confessed and was transformed, and Peter was cussing wild, and then he cusses once or twice. He's like, okay, it was the most appropriate thing. But now there are people who are like, nah, I will never look at anything by Tim Ross again.
That sounds like an inner insecurity. I hear what you guys are saying. I'm saying to all those listening, if that's how you feel about people, you got a bigger problem on your hands. Like it's a larger problem at hand. Mezzo, you said in your last comment that the person wasn't talking about morality. They were talking about opposite. So they're living immoral. I don't know what that means, but it sounds juicy. I wanted to know what is the example of living immoral, by which they were saying these quote moral people shouldn't be doing with them. Because the only thing that's coming to mind for me, I don't even want to lay that before that. Give me the example before I become biased.
I mean, Paul talked about sexual immorality. There are a bunch of different things that she probably thinks that.
And the reason why I'm asking that is because a lot of the things that we want to put on the Bible are actually scientifically and health-wise wrong on their own, regardless of whether or not we want God to enter into the space. Like, you risk certain things. Like, even with Courtney, we'll go back to even Courtney's eating lifestyle. Yes, he's doing that for different reasons, but health-wise, people will tell you it's bad to eat certain things. Take the Bible out of it. Stop looking for an excuse to release yourself of the accountability of this ain't good in general. And I'm choosing to do it, but stop putting it on his belief system.
So,
but it depends on how you view the world. Like the thing is, there are a lot of people that view the world, and we're taught to view the world through the lens of the Bible, or through the lens of God and this relationship that you have with Him. And so, and you hear it all the time when people are talking. I mean, I think that's half my issues with the Christian right is that I think they try to view the society we live in through their own particular ideas and views within the Bible, when that's not necessarily the case when you're looking at certain things, what it has to do with everybody. I mean, I just think it's how people view things, right? And they're just using that lens, and that's the only lens they have, and they believe that's a lens you should use.
And that's why I said we got bigger problems. Because if in our big age, and everybody here is in a big age, right? If in our big age,
some bigger than others, Cliff.
We should broaden our horizons and debunk some of these ideas that over even the last 10 years, a lot of them have shown to be, there's whether you want to believe in science, health, Scientology, whatever it is, there's something in your belief system that may say, yeah, that's not right, regardless if you want to throw God in it. And so that's why I'm struggling. And not even that I'm arguing with y'all, but it's like when you find yourself in these conversations, whoever is listening, like, don't make it about spiritual. Ask them, what about this thing do you feel that I shouldn't be able to do, even if you didn't know I was a believer? Like, that's just weird to me.
Oh, like, okay, so I've been in.
Hold on, Maureen. I don't want JT to drop off because they can't follow along with what we're talking about. So I just want to give them some context where we are, and because let me see if I can get the topic in one little statement. Essentially, we're asking the question that we are exploring is, why do we give so much grace to these characters, but we can't give grace to people in the modern time? I would, if I had to summarize it, that's kind of. Oh, that's Julian. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Then continue, Lauren.
So he doesn't deserve the.
Yeah. Yes, he does. I gave it to him already.
You're like,
Yeah.
dang.
So, Lezo's comment first.
All right.
I'll give an example. That is not what they are fully doing, but similar. Married Christian having an affair with a non-believer who professes nothing but doesn't care about having a married partner.
Again, I always tell people,
with a non-believer. Put it back up there.
If you're not poly, you risk somebody running up on you. Okay. And if somebody gonna run up on you, it doesn't matter which God you serve. If you don't respect your partner enough, and your respect for your partner is your respect for your partner, and don't put it on God and don't put it on Satan. Just in general, you decided to wrap yourself with this person by the government, and you decide to do what you want to do, and somebody run up on you, you risk it. Some people like the excitement. I don't know if this is a biblical thing or not. In my opinion, it's a risk that you take.
I'm not sure, Sharika, that the idea is biblical or not. It's that those people who profess their alignment with Christ are saying that they are now attempting to live in a way where they're not indulging their selfishness as voraciously as everybody else.
Jared,
They're
hold that.
becoming less and less selfish, or at least they're
Hold that,
attempting
though.
to.
But you also profess your love and your commitment to this person.
Yes, yes. So
So I'm saying Christ out. Let's act like that's not possible. Let's put Christ aside for the conversation purpose. If I profess my love to Lorraine.
yes. Yes. Allow me to finish because I'm with you. Their values, there's a value system there that transcends with your faith and your faith flavor. So I'm with you on that. But like, so I must say, Courtney's example helps to make it make sense. If you are saying I am a vegan, I have certain expectations of veganism, and curry goat is not one of them, right? Is there anything wrong with curry goat? Absolutely not. Maybe. If you have gout or you suffer from gout, curry goat is probably not a good idea.
You're anti-curry goat.
Right? But if you are,
I need a new example. I need a new example.
all right, you know,
No, I mean, I guess I'm taking issue, and I get where we're going with this. I'm taking issue with these blanket statements where we put Christianity in this blanket, right? There's no conversation around it. It's just a blanket, and everyone else is individuals.
well, no.
Right.
So Christianity is kind of doing that to itself because
Correct.
it is very loud in calling out meat eaters, so to speak. It's very loud in saying all of the bad things about meat, and then we want to take days off and have some gravy on our vegan salad. You know,
100%.
so how can you spend all, and so because of the communal aspect of it and not the individual person consideration, like Cliff is a Christian, Kenrick is a Christian, so I have similar expectations of them because they belong to this, right? Now Cliff is different from Kenrick. Cliff might be doing it longer than Kenrick. Cliff may have issues that Kenrick don't have, and so I don't see Cliff and Kenrick as individuals. I see them as part of this. And if Cliff start bringing, you know, his salad start having fish in it, when he start telling me he's a vegan, I'm like, what are you talking about, sir? This is inconsistent with what you are saying.
And I think that mentality is very ignorant. And what I'm hearing you say is that it is a large part of our population, and I guess that's okay. As I said before, like, I've only professed three things. You know, stay black, serve God, and die. Those are the three things I'm really. Oh, and four, pay my taxes.
But
outside of that, I can't be guaranteed to do much more. You know what I mean?
This transcends of even faith-based things. So, like, you know, there's anything that you profess has expectations around it, and anytime you contradict that in your actions, people call you out on it.
I don't disagree. That's a general statement of just professing and whatever. What I'm saying is the ignorance behind Christianity, and maybe it's because we dive into this. We've been diving into this for 11 years. It's still, and I don't engage in a lot of Christian conversations outside of us. So this could be my bubble. It still baffles me that there is this lack of awareness of the intertwinings of these quote Christian beliefs and just general life and the things that you commit yourself to, and not realizing that even if you commit yourself to these godly things, it means nothing in the grand scheme of salvation, right? And so I think my mind is just kind of like, y'all really walking around thinking that
it's a grand ignorance. Yes, you're right. Yes, but it's
Absolutely, but listen, this how we live, though. I guess that's why I'm baffled, Sharika, that you're baffled.
Right. Again, and I'm admitting to admit this, I don't engage in intellectual conversation with every and anybody. because I just don't. I'd be like, yo, that level of foolishness. You know what? Let's not do this. Let's just keep our conversation baseline.
No, but it's the assumption. I mean, we do it with everything. We do it with political parties. We do it with you know, Courtney's point. You know, diet restrictions.
Sexual orientation.
Like we do it sexual. Like we do it all the time. Whatever you say you are, we have an idea based upon whatever has been communicated to us per 45 years of being here, right? And now I've got an idea of whatever this thing is. You say you're conservative, you say you're liberal, you say you're vegan, you say you're vegetarian, you say you're a man, I say, like, whatever it is, right? You have this idea and this construct that's already been like delivered to you and set up, right? And we don't look at I always tell people, my kids specifically, like, everybody wants to be individuals, but y'all must buy off the rack. Like, that doesn't make any, like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Everybody's like, I go to my own, but no, like, you're literally buying one of 1,000 pieces.
Correct.
And you wouldn't buy anything outside of that because you feel like you look weird. Like, so we try to say that we're this, right? But we're not. We want to live individually, right? And judge people based upon whatever their standard is, and not judge them based upon who them living individually.
It goes
Hold
back
that thought, Rika. Hold that thought. We agree, but the non-believer had judgment on the believer because they professed something they didn't live up to, which is what we're saying. So they look down on them for that, which is what we're saying. Go ahead, Shrika.
Maybe I am a hypocrite because I say I am very inquisitive. I always want to know the why. I don't what you did and when you did is irrelevant to me. It's kind of like when people ask me, who do I want to meet? Lucifer. We had that conversation a couple years ago, and everybody thought I was bugging out and I'm playing with the wrong fire. And I was like, I talk to him every day anyway. We might as well sit and have tea, right?
Wow. I'm questioning that.
No, you don't remember this conversation we had? With Mark?
I do.
Oh, okay.
But it hits me the same way.
What I'm simply saying is I always want to know the why. I always think the villain has the backstory. I always think these things. And so sometimes when I've grown from that, oh, everyone is monolithic and it's just like, no, like we can all wear white shirts, but we all have different reasons. Let's talk about the reasons why we wear a white shirt. And my assumption is that all of us like white shirts. And it could be that's your only clean shirt. It could be that's the only shirt you have. It could be a bunch of things.
It's white because it was blue and I bleached it.
And exactly. It could be all kind of things going on. People just say things about themselves they don't really mean all the time, and which is why I just called myself a hypocrite. I mean that there are things that I'm a hypocrite on, but people need to call themselves sinners, and they have to believe that. They have to believe it. Yeah. Like,
I think that probably would be the better thing.
If you believe in sin.
Yeah, if you believe in sin.
there are people in certain positions that would give off the idea of next perfection.
No, not when they go to sleep at night, they don't believe that.
But what I'm saying is,
what? You said what?
Give off the perception that they're close to close to perfection.
I've
tell
learned,
you that you need to get up where I'm at. Mind you may like I've heard some things and seen some things where you're berated for where you're at down there. And
we just read a bunch of verses about it with Paul telling people to do that.
Well, here's the thing, Lorraine. I think two things are at play here. One, and this has happened to me. You put me on that pedestal, so I'm playing my role. Right?
I'm done.
Unfortunately, that's super facts.
It's super facts. Like, you put me on that pedestal, so I'm playing my role. And two, people want hierarchy. We are so uncomfortable with flat, and we want hierarchy in every sense of the word, every sense of the word. And then when you get it, then we have a problem with it.
So yes, those things are true. Let me take this comment, and then I want to add my thought. So what I'm hearing you say is this is the 10-year-old asking,
It's all right.
First
I'm
of
glad he's
all,
here.
People
Yeah.
just say things about themselves that they don't really mean. Yes,
it's only you've only been here for 10 years, so yeah.
yes,
Listen,
people do that.
So much
But
disappointment.
people also have, but that is true. But what is also true is that people have aspirations, and so they label them things with things that they would like to be as well, right? And then there are things that people want to be that they're still learning and figuring out. So they're growing in it and they're becoming better at it. Like I'm a swimmer, but I can't do the butterfly stroke yet. I could only do the freestyle, but I'm a swimmer nonetheless. Yeah. Or I'm a swimmer, but I don't swim competitively. Right. That doesn't make me any less of a swimmer. So
And
there's that.
you have to have both. Like the aspiration is necessary, right? It's I it you have something to, always. So when we're doing condos, we battle with the reality and the aspiration, right? So, you know, people walk into a condo and it never fails. They're like, "Where's the coffee bar?" Right? Because because the idea is that, oh my gosh, I love coffee bar. When I come down in the morning, I'm running out. I'm gonna fix my coffee. There are people talking around, and we're gonna walk out. Da da da. Da. And I was like, yeah, that's great, right? But the first two buildings I did, that's what we did. And literally, as soon as the board gets set up, they're just like, why are we paying for coffee for everybody else? We're cutting this. So you spend all this money doing it, and it's like, people can make their own coffee in their house. That's the reality, right? And so, but there are certain things. So I no longer do coffee bars and all that kind of stuff because it's going to get cut out. Why am I spending the money, right? And I know better than you because I know what you're going to do. But there's some things that you do that you have to maintain aspiration because you got to. I mean, people just like the idea of, right? And they have something to shoot for. They have something that makes them feel good. And so there always has to be like a mix of the aspiration. Like, yes, I would love the idea that my pastor is holier than thou, and he is the man of God that he says he is, and he is a true shepherd, and he is not David. He is not Moses. Damn. He's somebody. He's somebody that I believe a Christian should look like,
Lost
right?
connection.
Who I can go to. Was that?
Sorry,
he
you
froze
froze,
for
and
a
I
second.
wasn't sure if it was everybody or me or continue. Sorry.
I don't know where I lost.
She was somebody that we believe is
And you said Moses or
Moses, Solomon.
Oh, I was saying I think people want to believe that their pastor looks like somebody or is someone who they can go to who is flawless, who who doesn't have the same sins that you're suffering with, right? That's aspirational for them. The reality is that dude or that woman still battles the same temptation and still deals with the same things that you're dealing with on a regular basis, but maybe even more so, right? And so, that aspirational idea is not really the reality.
And
so.
and here's one of the things that contributes to that idea is that there's low hanging fruit of selfishness, right? They're the things that are obvious indicators of selfishness that you hope that someone who's like your pastor is over and he's on the higher tier of selfishness type activities, right? His selfishness type activities are more, private. It's should I have a cake or vegetables, right? Like that's where he is. He's not at the he's not at the me and my wife struggling and I like the attention from this other woman who she gives me relief because of all the pressure that I'm feeling. Like he's not on that level because he's conquered that. But the truth about sin that we don't teach is 6 million ways to die. Choose one, right? And that you might be struggling with this low-hanging fruit, but this sin is the same thing that he might be struggling with, right? Because it's the same,
Same principle,
it's the same desire.
the same desire. Yeah.
And it's the same desire because I've been in this desert for 40 days, and I haven't eaten anything. I have this power that I could use to feed myself. I know I wasn't supposed to use this power. I made a commitment to come down here and not access this power, but this power is available to me, and I'm hungry. That is no different. It's the challenge is we see that as somehow different. And I think if we were teaching it differently, we probably would have a little bit more grace. Lorraine.
Should there be some level of consistency in our walk, though?
Again, here we go.
Well, yes, the challenge with that is each of us as individuals.
Right. But I'm saying your overall, not on like a one-off incident, like your overall life as a proclaimed Christian, should there be some level of like every day you can't, well, every day being out here in these streets every day and saying you're like every day.
Lauren, here's the challenge.
I'm just asking the question. I'm not.
Can I just ask a question of? To Claire. So, are you talking about consistency amongst the people, or just consistency in your
life,
your personal? Okay,
you.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So here's a challenge. Dying to self daily is the challenge of everybody. Every day I wake up,
right?
For the time that I'm awake, I have to make decisions throughout my day, either to be faithful to Jesus or to be not. That's my daily challenge every day. That's your daily challenge every day. How many days are you successful?
I want to add to that. The thief on the cross was a thief the day before.
Right.
And so I think in so many ways, I think to Jared's point, you start over every day. I mean, I think it's the Jews who do a certain prayer in the morning because you're 1/8 dead when you sleep. I think that's what it is. Have you guys ever heard of this? I'll show it to you. Orthodox Jews.
Yep.
The Orthodox Jews do a certain prayer every morning because of the fact that you're 1/8 dead when you sleep. You start over every day and you have the opportunity to do what you have to do. It's like when you go to the gym, you use the same weight, the same machine. You just add weight to it. It just gets harder, or you keep leveling up. But just because, I messed up today, doesn't mean that I now wallow tomorrow and the day after. And just just because I'm successful today, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be successful tomorrow. I think our human nature is to believe that you're collecting coins and eventually the things may get easier, but we're fighting selfishness and it shows up in many different forms. And it's selfishness. You can never run out of how many ways you can be selfish.
Okay. So by your fruits, you'll know them. What does that mean?
By my what?
Your fruit. What does that mean? What does that in the Bible mean? What is it referencing?
You know, you asking my personal opinion or you wanted the biblical opinion?
Well, the Bible. What is
it? Courtney should tell you then.
Maybe we should go there and read it in context.
That's what I want to know. Like, what does that mean? Because even like when he went to the fig tree, it's only because I thought of fruit. When he went to the fig tree and expected fruit and it wasn't there, he cursed the tree. Like, what was that?
You know, Lauren, your boy has a nice definition. He gives around that. There's a whole teaching he did around it. Where he says what we misunderstand with that is that we can't make a judgment call on the tree, but we can make a determination on whether or not the fruit it's producing is good for us, let alone good for us in the season we're in. So if you know you have an allergic reaction to peanuts and you realize a tree is producing peanuts, you can't call the tree good or bad necessarily, but you know peanuts ain't good for you right now.
Ain't good for me, right? I remember that.
And I think very often that's the approach we even have to take with people. they may do things that are inconsistent with what they profess. There goes that thing again, or claim to be, but that that is the fruit they may have in the moment, and the most you can do, I think, is determine if that's good for you in your season or not. But you can't just make a judgment call on who they are, where they will end up. If all of their generations are then going to be cursed because of something you saw
Right.
in a moment, right? Which I think as believers we seem to enjoy doing. We love to call other people out
But
Mm-hmm.
because it takes less work to go in on people um, than to go in on yourself. So you rather put everything outside and everybody's messed up and everybody's this and say what we have to say about people, but we don't want to actually look inwards and do any work on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Man, you know
but
what? I think a little differently. I find that people, or most people, find a little bit more grace for themselves, right? Like they can see their own, kind of like have more understanding of their moments of difficulty, can find peace. Some they can see their setbacks as like learning experiences and opportunities for growth. Whereas, like what you guys are saying, I think oftentimes you can look at someone else and a moment they've had, you can label someone off of that, and that's what they are for
Ever.
whatever, yeah, whatever amount of time. It's like that's what they are, or that's so
But
I don't know.
Courtney, that's also because you know your why,
Okay.
right? Like you have the context, your own context around what's taking place, and therefore you can give yourself grace, warranted or unwarranted grace, because you can explain your way into it. You know what I mean? And when you see other people and you don't know their why, it's just, oh, this is bad.
so real quick, are we talking about? Well, go ahead, Jerry. You
I
were
was
gonna say
just
something.
going to answer Lauren's question by taking us to Matthew 7, where that
Context.
text is
Right.
written.
15. Mm-hmm.
But it starts at verse 15 as a continuation of a thought that starts at verse 1.
Don't
Well,
judge us.
it
Mm-hmm.
actually flows in from the chapter before, but let's start at verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it say in verse 1? Courtney, you can read for us.
Matthew
Matthew 7.
7:1.
Mm-hmm.
Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. For you will be treated as you treat others.
Mm-hmm.
The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? You can, how can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. Don't waste what is holy on people who are unholy. Don't throw your pearls to pigs. They will trample the pearls, then turn and attack you.
What's the connection between verse 6 and everything that came before? Because it feels a little like disjointed. What's the relationship?
I feel like what I got from it, at least the pearls before pigs part, I don't know about the dogs. But it's kind of like don't throw what you find valuable to something that may not find it valuable, because they're going to be insulted by the fact that you've given them something that they don't value.
And on top of that, it's mind your own stuff.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
yo,
was gonna
I always
say
tell you
stop
people,
stop
mind
worrying
your
about
business.
stop worrying about everything
I
else.
worry about everybody's business, and the reason why you threw those pearls over there because you were judging and minding their business. So now that they trampled on you, that's a personal problem that's now your consequence.
Good. So that's the context that he establishes before he goes into the next set of things, right? As the
Okay.
context in which, should help us pass the rest of the things that's coming. All right, Courtney, verse 7.
Okay. Keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, and everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. Your parents, if children ask for a loaf of bread, do you give them a stone instead? Or if they ask for a fish, do you give them a snake? Of course not. So if you sinful people know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your heavenly Father give good gifts to those who ask him? Uh, do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets.
Man, that seems disjointed as well.
Mm.
How is that related to knocking and seeking and asking? I mean, it's a good piece of advice, but it just feels like a loose thing that was tacked on to the end, and I don't readily see the connection. But it's an interesting way to sum up um, knocking, seeking, and asking.
You're asking how is 7 through 11 connected to 1 through 6? Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
you
I'm
say?
asking how 12 is related to
12 is connected.
to 7 through 11. Just like I did with how 6 is connected with 1 through 5.
I mean, I think it's the so 7 through 11 seem to be talking about the expectations of, and I think 12 is still I guess loosely, it's still the expectations of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You're expecting someone, your actions are based upon some level of expectation, right? Or how you would like to be treated, right? So keep on knocking and the door will be open. The expectation is that when you knock, you're looking to enter. If you ask, you would receive. If your kids ask you, or your parents, if your kids ask you for something, you would give, right? And the same thing with if you do something, you would treat someone how you expect that person to treat you. So it seems like there's a give and response in the relationship and the expectation that goes along with it.
I like that, Kendrick. I like that. And then the verse about how much more your father is willing to give the good gifts to those who ask him, on top of the judging. If I'm doing for you as I would want you to do for me, and I'm also have these expectations of the father to do, if I keep asking, he will give. Then there's this constant back and forth to give to others, if they keep asking in the same way I would want them to do for me. And so in the context of the judging that came before, it's that orientation to not judge and then return to others what you would want, which would be grace, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or that they would not even judge you.
But you also expect that they hold you accountable if they love you as well. Like there's that expectation as well. Like I wouldn't want to be with somebody who just looks past everything I do and don't help me stay on the straight and narrow.
I
Like,
don't know, man. I think that there's an expectation for that nowadays. I think correction, truth, facts, those are things that are kind of keep that. Like let's keep.
I'm talking about people I'm in relationship with, Courtney. I ain't talking about strangers. You wouldn't want your homie to say, "Hey, Courtney, you and y'all go out to drink. Let's say y'all go out to drink, right? Let's say, right? We going out to drink.
Yeah.
When you start to hit your limit and you start acting wild, you want your partner to just keep getting you like, oh, say, yo, you need to chill, partner. You're getting a little wild.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want that from your friend?
Are we having fun? I don't know.
Yeah, but if your wildness
but if your fun starts,
it gives a good point. I ain't gonna hold you. That's a good point.
No. But
we're talking about disruptive wild. We ain't just talking about fun wild.
Disruptive might be fun for him.
Hey now.
Jared,
look, y'all said each day you get to press a reset. So
I will be the one that's like, yo, like this Bama doesn't get any more.
He's cut off. Give him some water.
Cut off.
It's water.
Particularly when you wake up the next morning and your partners tell you, yo, you was whining on the fella over there, like he's trying to stop you, but you was all him, like, and we tried to not get any more drinks. When you wake up the next morning, you don't remember because you had the alcoholic blackout, right? Like you didn't remember none of that. And they tell you what you was doing the night before. You wouldn't have wanted them to say, don't give me no more. You really wanted them to tell you, yeah, keep drinking.
Listen, I don't yuck your yum.
Right, no Diddy, and I didn't know you had that inside you, bro.
Pause.
I don't yuck your yum. I'm not yucking your yum. Folks, we're not yucking yums here, folks. Okay, it's not what we're doing. Okay, we're not doing that.
But you have an expectation of people in your relationship with to keep you in check when you start going over whatever the boundaries of that relationship or the norms of that context is, right?
It is, but the first thing, it goes back to the very first verse is, do not judge others and you will not be judged. Right? So it's setting there like, yo, this isn't, there's no expectation here for you to judge. Like, I don't even, because you don't want it, so you don't do it. Like,
correct.
Off break. So off rip, he's just telling us, don't even do it, right? And then he gives us the reason why we shouldn't do it, because I already know, because you don't want to be treated that way, right? And so I think from the very beginning, there is a level and expectation that he puts out there that says that.
Good.
I think people confuse judging as well, like what that actually is. Like I think there's
right, that's
because sometimes some folks feel like if friends, whoever, are holding you accountable or something, that's like, oh, I feel like you're judging me or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? Versus like what I think scripture describes as actual judging. Like,
so judging here means by implication to condemn or punish, to separate, to put asunder, to pick out, to select, choose, to approve, to esteem, to prefer, to be of the opinion of, to deem, to think, to be of the opinion of, to determine, to resolve, to decree, to pronounce judgment, to be subject to censure, to rule, to govern. Or that judge has a lot of meanings, and I guess it means context matters.
But the context of this is he's talking to I'm going to call them believers, even though they're kind of all in the same community, right? So maybe some don't believe in Jesus at this time, but they're in the same community, right? So there's relationship. And so I think there's an expectation based upon he's saying based upon the relationship. I like the don't condemn. That's kind of what I thought of when it comes to the first couple of words that you use in the definitions. I don't think that's necessarily pointing out and saying like what we just talked about, like, yo, you're hitting your limit, right? That's just preservation.
Or even accountability. Accountability is not condemnation.
Accountability, but also just like you're now affecting the rest of us. Like this isn't even necessarily about you. Like if you're at home, you want to do this, but now you're affecting like the vibe here, right? So now I gotta cut you, or attempt to cut you. That's not judging. That's just preservation. But I also, so I do believe that,
judging is I'm not going out with you ever again because you can't control yourself.
Correct. Yeah,
is it?
No.
See,
it could be. It could be, right?
Okay, yes.
I'm not condemning you to hell. I just know you ain't for me.
I just designate you're drinking Trulies. If we can go out as long as you have a Trulies. Like, I'll do that. Because nobody's wilding off of Trulies. So,
and if you are, we got bigger issues.
Well, that's a doctor visit. That's a chemical imbalance.
Kombucha, okay? Anyway, carry on.
All right, let's move on. Courtney.
13?
But
Yeah, this is
you
verse
grind up on
13.
Verse,
Courtney was grind up on dudes. Like
yeah. Whoa. Example. That was what's so you said
Verse 13.
13,
We continue
same
now.
chapter?
Yeah, we're trying to get to
Okay.
15.
Okay. You can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad and its gate is wide for many who choose that way. But the gateway to life is very narrow and the road is difficult, and only a few ever find it.
How does those all that went before connect to this? Is he transitioning his thought? What point is he making? And now is there a relationship?
Hmm.
How the whole conversation started. I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to judge. It's hard to stay out of everybody's business. It's hard to provide the same level of expectation that you would want someone to provide for you. Um, I think all of that in my, as we're kind of going through it, it kind of that joint's hard.
Hmm.
Most people are going to. It's easy to judge. It's easy to get in people's business. It's easy to put yourself on a pedestal. It's easy to, all of those things are a lot easier than to actually take the time and be selfless in the way you're assessing or interpreting someone's actions or whatever.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take. I was thinking that he's now starting to say, yeah, we were talking about you and other people, but now there's some expectations for you. You know, now that we've talked about how you focus on other people, now you may need to, you know, as you say, take this other path, this narrower path. Um, but I like that. I like that. I'm going to mull on that a little bit more because in the context that seems to fit a little bit better. But any other thoughts there on how they're related?
I mean, I can tie. I'm having difficulty tying the ones y'all did before, but the narrow gate and the don't judge is he's basically saying the standard you're judging other people is the standard that's going to be used for you. So if you're saying that on this walk through towards the narrow gate, I guess, if it's hard for you, it's hard for them. And if you're saying they should be able to do it, then you should be able to do it. So the expectation, if I'm saying like, okay, well, it should be easy for you to get through the narrow gate, well then, okay, if you feel that that's how it should be for them, then it's the same for yourself. So that was my mental connection to that.
But the verse 13 says, enter God's kingdom through the narrow gate.
Only through the narrow gate.
Right.
I don't know. I think that this, for me, I take it as that road is difficult. Like these precepts are hard for, I guess, our normal human carnal understandings. Like it's not the default. Like you got to actually sit here with it in literally each choice, like in each moment there's a choice of how to approach it, and I don't think it's going to be the one that we would normally pick based on our feelings or our mood or whatever the case is. Like
So I've read a saying that says, thinking is difficult, that's why people judge.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's also like, doesn't it? So once again, going back to the people that he's talking to. So if you grew up in this Jewish society, there was actually very little. There was not a lot of room for grace because of the rules.
Correct.
Right? And so he's introducing an entirely new concept here where do unto others as you do unto others as you would like them to do to you. Like that's a different concept because we just do what the rules said. Like if you did this, this is what happens.
And we don't appreciate the context. We don't think about your why, nothing. You just did it, that's it.
You did this, we do this. Right? this is supposed to happen. It was causing, it was a cause and effect, right? And so what he's doing here is introducing an entirely different concept to these people, um, that is contrary to what they've done.
Mm-hmm. Lord, Courtney, we're going into Lawrence verses now. 15.
Beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep but are really vicious wolves. You can identify them by their fruit, that is, by the way they act. Can you pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown into the fire. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, so you can identify people by their actions.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I got from that, and I never got it before. You know how long it takes for a tree to grow, much less to bear fruit. In order for you to even conclude someone, you'd have to be around them and be in community for some time in order for you to know what they are or what they aren't. And so
Maybe.
I think, I mean, yeah, I don't understand why not.
But
Why not? Give me why you say
but to
maybe.
but
So
to but to your
using your analogy, the tree is growing in the yard, and if I'm away around it, I really don't know what kind of tree it is till the fruit starts to grow. But if a pomerac tree is in full fruit, in full bloom, and has been bearing for a while, when I walk up on it, I immediately know it's a pomerac tree. I could tell just by looking at it.
If you're familiar with the tree,
If I'm familiar
well,
with the fruit.
with the fruit, excuse no,
Fruit,
because
yes.
there
And a
have been
pomerac is a pomerac.
so to your
So,
to your point, Sharika, I like where you're going with it because you can have a tree that looks to be full grown, that that because of its biology or whatever. Is it biology? Biology is good.
yeah,
It
we can do that.
whatever. Yeah, I
It's
feel the same.
makeup. It is what it is.
The it- so for instance, so growing up, we had apple trees and all these different things, right? And that joint will grow and it will be pretty big, but it will still take like 4 or 5 years, even when it looks ready, for it to produce the fruit, right? Just because that's its makeup, right? So you can
yes.
go out there and look at it and it looks like a tree and it looks like it should produce fruit, but it's not going to produce anything just because it's not mature. To your point, it takes time for it to happen. However, once the fruit does appear, it's now an apple tree, and it
Yeah.
can't
So,
be a
so
fig
saying
tree.
you're
It
an
can't be
apple
anything else.
tree with no apples mean you're not an apple tree.
Not
No.
necessarily. An
No,
apple
you're
tree
still an
without
apple
apples can
tree.
still be an apple tree.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yes,
saying. An apple tree with
But
no apples can still be an apple
but
tree.
the
you may
point of
not
this
know it's an
verse
apple
is,
tree because the
So you
fruit
can't
isn't
identify
ripe.
until the apples come up. Is that
But
well,
what?
but
only the
also
person only the person who planted it knows it's an apple tree.
and the person who's been watching it, right? Like you knew as a kid over time, you know what this looks like. You've been told, you've been taught, like you've been in, I hate to say community, but with the tree, right? Like it is what it is. I want to point out another piece though, where it says they come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous or ravenous wolf. You know how far wolves and sheep are? There's mad stuff in the middle. Like these are two extremes here, right? Like, and so to the point we were making earlier, like there's these middle grounds of development and steps that get to the point of this bad production.
so they do reference trees, but this is not about the growth and development of trees and the maturation of trees. This is about an apple tree pretending to be an orange tree.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's a whole different thing.
but
Because
it
this,
also speaks about health, though. It talks about the health of the tree, not just the fruit.
A good tree can't.
But before that, mine says a healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, is what it says.
right, but it also, so that it uses more than one illustration to make the same point. It's a wolf pretending to be a sheep,
Mhm.
but you can tell that it's a wolf because wolves are wolves, and wolves have
Can't
They
help
have
them.
different teeth than sheep. So just by watching the teeth, you could tell it's a wolf, not a sheep, right? So it has identifying characteristics. Same way, a thorn bush will not produce grapes. It will produce whatever it's supposed to produce. But because of what it will produce what it is. Apple trees can't produce orange. Now, apple trees can mature, and we can have the conversation about a maturing apple tree. But the point that being made here is about being able to tell the sheep from the wolf, right? By making the point that it can't be other than what it is, even when it pretends,
But
because there are these things that prove it to be. Same
But
thing
it's
with
but it's
bad.
but it's only but I will push back on your description where it was like there are like the teeth, right? Because it was simply he's saying in this it's only acts. It's only
Yes,
the
yes, yes,
way.
yes. I'm using teeth to say that they're telltale signs, like teeth. In a sheep and a
but
wolf,
you have to be in community. If I
yes,
have on sheep's clothing, brethren, if
yes, you
I
have to
have
be close
on,
enough to tell.
you
Yes,
have to be close. Like you have to
yes,
be in this community. Like for somebody to be a false prophet, they got to be near you to be conversing with you for you to
correct,
be able to differentiate between
correct.
what's going on. From
They,
afar, you can't tell
And
a fool from an intellect.
he's talking to the community when he says this.
Right.
Yeah.
yes. However, um, yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so to my, go ahead. Let me let you finish bringing this, and then I'll ask my next
I was just making the point that all of these illustrations, grapes from thorn bushes, figs from thorns, in the same way, every good tree bears good fruit. So if this is not, if this is really a sheep, it will bear fruit of a sheep. But if it's
one.
really a wolf, it will bear fruit of a wolf, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he says, it can't be other than what it is. An apple tree cannot bear oranges. Is essentially what it's saying.
Right. Impossible.
Every tree that doesn't bear good fruit will be cut down. That's a whole different idea, but similar. That's a whole thing that we could unpack another time. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then he summarized by saying you can tell each tree by its fruit, but you have to be able to know what the fruit is. You have to know what a wolf is, what a sheep is, and how to tell one apart from the other. Right? To Sarika's point, there's a level of intimacy either about the nature of a wolf or this particular wolf to be able to tell, to be able to do that identification.
I want to add something here that's not sitting well with me, and I could be going off the Sharika ramp here. The reason why it says when it said beware of false prophets, and the reason why I have time, because prophets can be wrong, but they don't mean they're not false. It's potentially over time you can see that it's foolishness you're speaking. But a false prophet can be right, and a false prophet can be wrong. A broken clock is right twice a year.
Yeah, you're going off the ramp because the follow-up statement is there's intention for them to be something other than they are not, which is different than what you are saying.
So I'm off the ramp. I'm leave it to the after because I do have something for the after show with that.
Yeah. So only
And I think
because
we read something about that in Deuteronomy where it made it clear that yeah, there are.
there's a thing called false prophets, but what he's telling you to watch out for is the people who come in presenting one way but are really something else, and they intentionally attempting to defraud you. So you have to be able to deal with these people who are attempting to defraud intentionally, right? This is
So
not
can I
the people with the log in their eye that you're helping to correct. These are the people who willfully and knowingly trying to, you know, misrepresent.
Yeah.
So if I'm back to the believer, the non-believer, and the adultery, the juicy stuff kids go for that Messi was talking about, right? In that event, is that person a false prophet? Is that what we're saying?
No,
no.
So
No, it's
all
that's a
really
right.
just
person
talking
with a
about the
log.
acts.
Okay.
So this is literally talking about the acts of the person. Whoever you are, your actions will show to me who you are. Is
So
what this is saying,
um,
right? But my thing, but this this is my this is where it gets kind of convoluted. Um, or I shouldn't say convoluted. It's just not clear at this point. There's a lot of feedback. Is that me?
We'll see. Hold on. No, it's not you.
Y'all hear that?
Yeah, the water. Who's it?
That's Cliff.
Ah.
Oh, sorry, I must have hit a button. I'm sorry.
So, okay. So, with my question about consistency, like a tree, should there be identifying characteristics of those who claim Christ?
Absolutely.
What are those?
Sharika, so the fruit will be consistent with the tree. So,
Right.
so I would say the agape is the evidence of the tree.
Well,
And
that's what I was
that's
gonna get into, like just the what is good and bad, right? And I think that's where that kind of gets into where we started the conversation, where at least I came in on the conversation was, you know, who's to say, you know, people's interpretations of good versus people's interpretations of bad. How do we clarify, and where in the Bible do we get the idea of whatever this good is and whatever this bad is?
Yeah. So to Kendrick's point, and to answer your question, my first thought is the fruit, because Jesus talks about in John the bearing of the fruit and being attached to the vine so that you can bear good fruit, right? Because you're connected, you will be part of an apple tree, so that you will give apples. Sometimes you get to get pruned to produce apples. Sharika's point is not going to you plant the seed, you ain't getting apples for 4 years, but you'll never get oranges off of that tree. And sometimes you had to treat the tree better and give it more fertilizer so it'll bear good fruit, because it might bear bad fruit for a while or bad apples for a while. You could help it bear better apples, and then bear plenty apples, right? But you'll never get it to become an orange tree. So yes, a tree even bears inconsistently, right? And you can have that dynamic. The question is, what type of tree is it? Because it'll always be that type of tree. Well, in tree illustrations, people aren't as fixed as trees because people can grow to be other things. But essentially, that's the vision. But this reference to good tree, bad tree, good fruit, bad fruit is about intentional misrepresentation.
right.
And this is not about failure, cheat days.
Right.
This reference to good fruit, bad fruit is about intentional misrepresentation. And we talked about failure before. The log in your neighbor eye and your eye. We talked about that. We accounted for that. So just wanted to make that little point there as we answer. But then I saw Sharika over there had something. Hey, Trisha, what's up?
I don't remember no more. My bad.
Let me let me start a pot for Kenrick, because we was talking about what's the good fruit or whatever. My thinking is that made me think when you said that, like, man, you know what? There's some folks that may think that some of the fruit of some false prophets are aren't bad. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking about this desire for gain or easy life or desire for prestige and that kind of stuff, like they like that's I'm with that. You know what I mean? Like they're not looking at, so like I get what you were saying with that. Like, yeah, there are some people that probably look at what's good or bad fruit. It depends on that person too. Like each individual. Like,
Correct. Yeah. Because it's. I think that. I mean, even the. I think in Matthew was it Matthew where it talks about um, even the very elect will be deceived. I mean,
If possible.
is possible.
Mhm.
And so even, so that's based upon what the fruit that is being shown or provided by whoever it is, that false prophet.
So, I'm still stuck. So the identifying characteristic of a Christian is agape. Is that what we?
Let's read John 15.
Okay. Because we were talking about fruit and identifying it, and
Yeah. So the context of the verse before was just saying this type of thing has identifying marks. Fruit is the illustration for that. That is not telling you what the fruit is or what is not. That illustration was really to tell you an apple tree is an apple
right,
tree will only produce apples. Be careful for the apple tree that pretending to be an orange tree.
right. But you got to be able to know what an apple tree looks like and what an orange tree looks
Correct.
like. Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
Let's go to
15.
Courtney.
Yes, sir. From verse 1.
Yes.
Okay. John 15. I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so they will produce even more. You have already been pruned and purified by the message I've given you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile to be burned. But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want and it will be granted. When you produce much fruit, you are my true disciples. This brings great glory to my Father. I have loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends, since I've told you everything the Father told me. You didn't choose me, I chose you. I appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask for using my name. That is my command. Love each other. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. The world will love you as one of its own if you belong to it. But you are no longer a part of the world. I chose you to come out of the world, so it hates you. Do you remember what I told you? A slave is not greater than the master. Since they persecuted me, naturally they will persecute you. And if they had listened to me, they would listen to you. They will do all this because of me, for they have rejected the one who sent me. They would not be guilty if I had not come and spoken to them. But now they have no excuse for their sin. Anyone who hates me also hates my Father. If I hadn't done such miraculous signs among them that no one else could do, they would not be guilty. But as it is, they have seen everything I did, yet they still hate me and my Father. This fulfills what is written in their scriptures. They hated me without cause. But I will send you the advocate, the Spirit of truth. He will come to you from the Father and will testify all about me. And you must also testify about me because you have been with me from the beginning of my ministry.
And what was I supposed to get from that one?
What did you get?
No, I'm
Sorry,
just
Courtney, you
I
gotta
wasn't
reread that
trying
whole
to be
thing again,
funny.
dog.
I wasn't trying to be funny.
I'm reading
I
from the
wasn't
beginning.
trying to be funny. I'm still looking
They got
for
cliff notes on this joint.
the. No, I'm trying to get like the characteristics. So I was reading staying connected to the vine, but I can't see that. That's not something I can see.
So no, it's not.
Okay.
But who or what is the vine? Remember, let's go back to the first one. Fruit is what? Not what is the fruit. Fruit is what? What does fruit represent?
Acts, behavior,
In Matthew 7, what does the
acts
fruit represent? What is it being
they
used
were
for?
doing.
Yeah, well, yes, the fruit is the things that they're doing, but what does the things that they're doing represent?
Who they are.
Evidence.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If I'm a mango tree, how do I know you're a mango tree? Mangoes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to chapter 15 now.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is saying what? What's verse 1?
He's the vine.
He's the vine.
Mm-hmm.
And the Father is the
Gardener.
good. And what does he do?
He prunes. He does all kinds of stuff to the branches so that they may produce much fruit.
All right. So verse 4.
Branch cannot produce fruit if it's been severed from the vine.
So whatever the nature of the vine is,
Mm-hmm.
the fruit is going to come out of the vine.
Okay.
So what is the nature of this vine? Jesus. And what are the evidences of belonging or connecting yourself to that nature?
Living and doing as he did.
Which is what? And he says it in this verse, in this chapter. He articulates it in here.
Yeah, he's very clear about
Love
it.
each other in the same way I've loved you.
Uh-huh. That word there is what?
Agape.
Uh-huh. So the evidence of connection to this vine, the fruit of this vine is agape. And agape sits in contrast from sin, which is selfishness.
And that is the only characteristic that.
Well, it's not the only characteristic because it manifests in all kinds of different ways.
Okay.
If you understand what agape is, you can tell it. You can tell agape from selfishness. For example, you can start to tell it from agape. And sometimes you need, like Shrika pointed out, to be up close because it's not the acting of itself. So, for example, building a house for somebody who's unfortunate could possibly be agape, but it could also be selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know whether it's agape or selfishness?
I think it's the intention. If you were doing it for, at the end you were looking for some kind of some praise.
But you'd have to know the person.
Right. But it was like you can't identify intention though.
But you can see it from a distance from things that people are doing. So the person who does it and then always want to take a picture and put it up and then or in think so.
No.
So I'm not saying it's always wrong.
No.
So stay with me. It's not always wrong, but they're indicators of pride and selfishness in people's actions.
Mm-hmm.
But those are
indicators of that.
You need repetition in order to see pattern.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't necessarily tell fruit from a single encounter, right? Yeah. Absolutely. But there are patterns. And Jesus talks about this about the Pharisees. They appeared pious, but there were patterns in their behavior that demonstrated that their piousness or the piety was really about them and not about other people. And he called them out. You tithing all your stuff to be thing, but you also taking the widow's thing. You don't really care about the widows. That's evidence, actions that demonstrate that you're not really about that. And so you have to know to be able to detect agape and identify agape so that you can tell it from something else.
Mm.
And what is agape? It's
Is
It's
that
like
the
a,
Was that an
act?
open? Was that an
it's
open
like a
question?
concern.
well, yeah, because it
Oh
helps
yeah.
us to then refine this and be able to assess a situation, right? Or at least know what we're looking for in a situation to be able to assess it, right? So we're not just looking on the surface. So
Is
it's,
that the active concern that we've talked about before?
yeah, active concern for something or someone because of its intrinsic value,
Interested about it.
or its perceived intrinsic value,
Perceived, yeah.
and it's in usually in the benefit of the thing, you know, to the benefit of that object and for the care and concern of that object.
To the disregard of
Considering the thing before yourself.
yes.
Well, not necessarily before yourself,
Um,
but there may be instances where you have to do that. Yes, I wouldn't just because then if you make that blanket rule, then the exceptions where you have to consider yourself, and that is part of the
well,
agape.
the language. I guess you're right. The language is not before. I think the language that is used is love each other in the same way I have loved you.
Correct.
So it's not necessarily before.
Mm. Question for the group. I wanted to ask this last time. I heard it on somewhere. Is it possible that it's been said that you have to love yourself before you can love others or love anyone else? Is that true?
I think it's true.
There is some truth to it, but it's not a, it's so we like to make things black or white, and I don't know that it is that black or white.
I put it. Sorry, Cliff. I put it on the same level as the saying "hurt people hurt people." I call BS. It could be.
It could be. I mean, that is true, but it's not like.
Yeah, right,
Or-
right,
It could be,
right,
or it couldn't.
right. Or it could choose to be different. Right. Mm-hmm.
It's like they're like, yeah, you gotta have self love for you.
Also, like, here's the thing, though, right? So,
Mm.
one perspective is usually, no, in some cases, like people who beat up on themselves can at times, like we were talking about standards, right? So if they're thinking like, oh yeah, well, I'm supposed to be perfect, that means they need to be perfect. Like, so the same standard I have for me is what I'm expecting from everybody else, but I'm not them and they're not me, right? But then on the opposite side, for me personally, I find, which has been pointed out to me, which is like an aha moment for me, is I tend to show mercy and grace to others, less for myself.
Mm.
So my standards for me are much higher than what I have for other people. So that would counter that whole.
I think it can be.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has to be yes all the time.
Yeah, so it's agape is to act in love, to value, esteem, feel, or manifest generous concern for, to be faithful towards, to delight in, to set store upon because of perceived intrinsic worth, which is, you know, go ahead, Kenneth.
No, I was saying, it's like when you're flying in a plane and they say in case of emergency, you put the mask on you and then you put the mask on your kid. I think, you know, the natural thing that people from a selfish perspective is like, no, you take care of everybody else first. And then you take care of yourself. You're like, no, in order for the kid to get helped, you actually have to help yourself
Mm-hmm.
in that particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's situationally. Yeah. Yes.
It definitely is. I think some people use self love to be selfish. So it
Facts.
depends on
That's where I judge.
it depends on how you're defined. I don't think self-love is an overarching idea. Some people have their own definitions of self-love and self-care, which could just be it. Like that just could be it, you know. That's a form of self-care, self-love. So it's just
I'd like to point out that John chapter 14. No. Yes. No. Give me a second. I know it's John. It's in John, but I'm trying to remember which one it is. Yes, John chapter 13, verse 34 and 35. Courtney, go there, please.
I got you. So now I am giving you a new commandment: love each other, just as I have loved you. You should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples.
So in John 13:35, he says, your love for each other will prove that my disciples. And John 15:8, he says, when you bear a lot of fruit, it brings glory to my Father. It shows that you are my disciples. And here he's saying, so in the Old Testament, where it says, love your neighbor as yourself, there's an assumption that I care enough about myself. I understand my own intrinsic value to act caringly for myself. So that is essentially do as to others as you would have them do unto you. If you want that for yourself, you want it for others. That's love yourself, love your neighbors as you love yourself. Because there's that inherent self-regard or assumption of self-regard. Jesus is mixing it and saying, hold on, let's go a step beyond that. Even if you don't love yourself. Have you experienced love from me? Love you experience from me, love others like that. That will demonstrate that you're my disciples. That is the fruit that demonstrates you connected to this vine. Because you passing on to them what you get from me. That does leads to accountability over judgment.
Say that again?
That would manifest as accountability over judgment. Because Jesus is holding you accountable.
Accountability over judgment. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what are two practical examples of people exhibiting love for other people?
Forgiveness.
sitting on this call for 7 hours with each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Or just nothing else to do?
And see, here's the thing. It's not a universal action. And I'm going to go back to this. In the same way, eating fruit will be right for Kenrick and wrong for Eve. The action itself is not the thing. Because the same action could be loving and the same action could be selfish. The same action. And so it's more of a self-assessment more than an external assessment. Now, there are times when you can externally assess, but but you still have to be a little bit closer or really be able to tell selfishness from love to be able to tell. And they're indicators.
So as a married man, if I see a woman that is stressed out and she needs to be unstressed, going and having sex with her.
Kendrick, close your computer. Close. Log off. I'm gonna need you to log off.
Would not be for me.
Log off.
Yes. There's a challenge with that. It may show agape for her, but it won't show agape for your wife.
It isn't going to show agape for you either. Again, keep telling y'all.
But it allows her
when somebody pull up on you.
But it allows her to show forgiveness.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does create that opportunity.
Which creates the agape
Again, Kenrick, none of this may be seen as agape when she gets pulled up on by the wife. Like it's not agape at that point.
I unstressed the wife.
You did not. All you did was big your back. That's all you did. Like that's all.
Okay, so that doesn't work.
No,
But
it doesn't.
I was just trying to find
Now,
out.
if you're polygamous, we're not yucking your yum. Do what you have to do. You know what I mean? That's on you. We have to be very political around here, folks. We gotta make sure we not violating nobody's rules. Okay.
Be all in that polygram. Who logged off?
It was Lorraine.
Lorraine.
It was Lorraine.
I just saw the squares just go away.
Yeah, so that's what makes it challenging, Lorraine, is that they're general principles, but there's no straight line because each person's situation and context is so unique that you probably need more information before you can make a judgment, which is why you can't judge. But there's some general guidelines that you can use to.
So if your behavior or action are self-seeking, once again, we already talked about the selfishness overall, right? But if your behavior or actions in any specific, why do I feel like I sound like I'm buzzing or something? But if your behavior or actions sounds like look like your intentions are self-seeking, and they are, then
Not look.
that.
It's not look.
I mean, how else do you see it? How do I wait?
How
what?
I see your behavior is a reflection of my thought process. You can't
Correct.
see.
Correct.
I don't mean like visually, but your perception of things. Like,
yeah, but that's
how
also
are you judging?
it's all based on my point of view and my experience.
Correct. So the caution here is not to.
But it could be my experience with you.
Correct.
Yeah,
Not
but it's
necessarily-
still mine. It's
Or
not.
It could be my experience with other people that
Correct.
necessarily may not be attributed to you.
So the first thing that the chapter we read first says is assess your log and not
Right.
their spec.
Right.
You can't see it. Right?
Right.
So it's more of an assessment of my own motivations that I need to be primarily concerned with.
Right.
This whole assessment of other people is to detect the people who intentionally trying to defraud.
Which you have to use your perception to figure out.
Yes. But you're not looking for the people who have logs like you.
You
You're looking,
also
this assessment is for the false prophets.
right. You also have to be aware of your logs.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So like, and some people project, right? Like, it's like, I want to call you a liar because I got issues. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to be in a healthy spirit in order to be able to even be in a position to decipher.
Correct.
That's why you drink your water and mind your business.
But you can help because we're on a journey together, like on a basketball team, I can help you with your dribble. Right.
Well, what I can do, let's use basketball, I can identify that something's up with your dribble and let's talk about it. Right? Like, Jared, you need new shoes. Are you tired today? Did you get so good? Did you get your protein in? But I can't just assume that you're just a trash basketball player, right? Like, I have to, if I'm going to help you, I have to make an assessment.
Your dribble suspect. Get some new kicks.
I think it's very important because people are more, at least in my experience, and only with me, maybe I feel alone. I am more willing to journey and be journeyed with when time is spent in understanding the why.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you done made an assumption that my kicks is trash. That's wild. I don't want to play anymore. Right? Like, so you gotta ask questions and also ask unbiased questions.
But see, I recall us having a conversation before where it was the why doesn't matter. When we're talking about adultery or whatever, it was like the person seeking understanding was like, well, it doesn't matter why.
Talking about
The
talk
person
about
who was
adultery.
hurt. No, yeah. I mean, here's okay. So
No.
let's call TT, right?
Mhm.
All right. I'm back to me and you, Lorraine. Me and you in a relationship,
Mhm.
right? And you cheat on me with Trisha.
Mhm. Mhm.
I may not care why you cheated on me. Yeah, Trisha, you in this now, right? I may not care why you cheated on me.
Mhm.
But if Jared is journeying with you in your relationship, he shouldn't just judge and be like, yo, Lorraine is a cheater. If he really cares about you, he should ask, yo, what's going on? Why is that happening? How do we avoid this happening again? In my hurt, I don't care. But if someone's journeying, and if we also want to get to reconciliation, perhaps I might care at some point. But yeah, I think when we talked about who cares about it, that's what we were talking about. It's like the person who was offended or who got
I don't know,
offended.
'cause I think we were talking about like forgiveness.
Paul wouldn't even let you go there because y'all are involved. That's a lesbian relationship.
Again, don't yuck our yum.
So yes,
Do not yuck
so yes,
our yum.
let's go back to what you're saying, Lorraine. What we had said in that conversation was, in order to forgive, the why does not matter. Yes, in order to forgive, the why doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Now, for reconciliation, perhaps it
Mhm.
may play a part, but forgiveness does
Mhm.
not requisite an understanding of the why.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes,
Okay.
agreed.
That's what we were saying about the why then.
Mhm.
It was specific to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We
Mhm.
weren't just saying the why doesn't matter across the board.
Mhm.
Cliff has issues.
Cliff just said he not yucking yums. That's what he said, and I'm here for it. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you a question before we end. Then, so taking this, so I struggle with Paul. I can see the benefits. I have my, whatever. This still goes on. But the one thing that Paul says consistently, as we were reading Corinthians, I shouldn't say consistently, he said it a few times, was that you should follow me. Like
As
the
I follow Christ.
Follow me as I follow Christ. Mhm.
He says that.
Mhm.
yes, right? But he says you should follow me.
Mhm.
There are only a couple
Mhm.
occasions where he clarifies and says, as I follow. There were a couple
I
of
see one of those, Kenrick, please.
all right.
I'd like to see one of those. Because the context he's saying is,
While he's looking at, were you able to find a verse about when we were talking about leaders, people in the
I
purpose?
saw one of them. There's one of them is James 3:1. One of them is that. I think is this James 3:1? Yes, it's 3:1.
James 3:1.
I put it on the screen earlier. Let me check.
Yeah, that's
And
definitely what you had.
Yeah, James 3:1. It's one of them. I'm sure there are others, but that one kind of makes the point.
I'm guessing this is not judged by people. This is judged by God. Correct.
I think the point he was making here is yes, by God, but I'm sure people do the same thing. I think most of the times people, most of the references, another reference is those who know to do right and don't do it will be punished more harshly, and that's by God, because one of the things you see in the scripture, particularly in the New Testament, is akin to the authority for punishment and judging is that of the parent and not of the sibling.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The sibling's role is to hold accountable and maybe help course correct, but punishment is not in our purview per se. So yes, a lot of that conversation is framed in that manner.
So in the 3:1, are they saying there's a different expectation for a teacher than for the rest? not necessarily higher, but a different expectation as a teacher versus
Of by others?
no from him. We said he's the one judging.
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
okay, okay.
yes, yes, absolutely. There's yeah, there's the beaten with many rods, beaten with many stripes verse. Um, I'm gonna find it. Hold on. It keeps returning James 4:17. We can find it. Um, Let me get the right verse. Not those who know to do right. Uh, all right, there we go. Luke 12:47.
Want me to read that right now?
Yeah.
All right. 1247 says, and a servant who knows what the master wants but isn't prepared and doesn't carry out those instructions will be severely punished.
Verse 48.
But someone who does not know and then does something wrong will be punished only lightly. When someone has been given much, much will be required in return. And when someone has been entrusted with much, even more will be required.
Yeah.
Sorry, another thought I just had. Love others the way that I have loved you. His love doesn't always feel good, right?
Depends.
Right. So I
So,
won't go down this rabbit hole. It's okay.
so the challenge that we face is that we impose our English definition of love on this idea, and it's
Mhm.
helpful if we say agape others as he agaped us, because then we have these attachments of feelings to agape that agape don't have any emotional feelings. If you want to talk emotions and feelings, start talking about phileo and eros. That's affection.
Right.
Agape is in the will of the mind, is decisions to intentionally consider
Right.
the good and the welfare of an individual or a thing, or my concern and regard for that individual's concern and regard. So, like my agape for God is, I have active concern for what's important to Him, so I do what is said, and that don't feel good to me
So
because.
my rebuke can be agape.
So my what?
My rebuke can
Absolutely.
be agape.
Right.
First
Okay.
Corinthians 13 says that definitely.
Yeah. I think sometimes there are things about people that are believers that say things in that regard, then, you get called like, oh, you're a Christian. You're not supposed to this. You're not supposed to that.
That's the way they sound when they say
Yeah, that's how they sound.
I mean,
Yeah.
Hebrews 12:6.
For real, though. It's crazy. So,
Yeah, Courtney, as we're closing out, they go to Hebrews 12:6.
Hebrews 12:6. Okay. Come on. Hebrews.
Well, let's go. Let's go from 1.
All right, 1 to 6.
Mhm.
All right.
No. We go past 6. 1 to 12.
You said Hebrews 6?
Hebrews 12.
Okay.
Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in a place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up. After all, you have not yet given your lives in your struggle against sin. And have you forgotten the encouraging words God spoke to you as his children? He said, "My child, don't make light of the Lord's discipline and don't give up when he corrects you. For the Lord disciplines those he loves and he punishes each one he accepts as his child." As you endure this divine discipline, remember that God is treating you as his own children. Who ever heard of a child who was never disciplined by its father? If God doesn't discipline you as he does all his children, it means that you are illegitimate and are not really his children at all. Since we respected our earthly fathers who disciplined us, shouldn't we submit even more to the discipline of the Father of our spirits and live forever? For our earthly fathers disciplined us for a few years, doing the best they knew how. But God's discipline is always good for us so that we might share in his holiness. No discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful, but afterward there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. So take a new grip with your tired hand and strengthen your weak knees.
13.
Mark out a straight path for your feet so that those who are weak and lame will not fall but become strong.
All right. So yeah, discipline is a key part of love because I'm showing active concern for your well-being by providing correction. It's pruning so that you could bear more fruit.
Mm,
But agape is it's the opposite of selfishness and sin.
mm,
And just like you can't really say, eating fruit is bad, except in the context where you did not show agape to the father by going ahead and eating the fruit that he asked you not to eat. That's the assessment. You don't just look at, oh, she ate fruit, she's bad. If you look at the action, you miss that she was given the instruction, she disregarded the instruction. That action is the bad action, not the eating of the fruit. And that's why I'm saying, in terms of the assessment, you have to know what they're assessing. You have to know what the fruit is. We label all these things as bad. Adultery is bad, but not because it's adultery, but because of the lack of agape that it represents.
mm.
You understand?
Gotcha.
So
Make
if,
it nice.
if so, like we were talking about accountability earlier. So if you see your whoever um, going in a direction that is gonna like there literally is a big hole in front, and you say, "Hey, I'm not gonna tell them because I don't want them to be mad at me, and I don't want a friendship or a relationship or whatever." That would be selfish motives and not considering that person who's about to drop in the hole.
Would you want them to leave you to drop in the hole by yourself?
No. I'm saying.
No,
I'm asking. Oh, go ahead.
in answering your question, I'm asking.
Would I want them to leave me to drop in the hole?
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I also wouldn't be mad at the person. So there are people who would be mad at you, and that would be the end of the relationship. So I'm saying, with your desire to preserve the relationship versus protecting them from dropping in the hole, that's not considering the person. That's you protecting.
Maybe. There may be so there are a couple of things. There's a couple of layers, and it's not as black and white as that.
Right.
Maybe there's a chance where there's a world where that is true.
Right.
There's also a world where God says, "Don't say nothing. Let it happen."
Right. But if he tells you to say something and you're like, I don't want to lose this friendship because I know when I tell them, because there are people like that. So I'll cut you off.
My point is this: it's not as black and white as that, because there's all kinds of things that are happening, and that's more of an internal self-motivation between you and God and the details of the circumstance. Right? Because there's a world where, yes, it's selfish, and then there's a world where this is probably what's best. Because I talk to Kenrick used to use this story all the time. There's, sometimes giving the people what you think is helpful is harmful, and only the circumstance will bear that out. So you can't just say, yes, I let them go in the hole, or no, I don't let them go in the hole. It depends.
I mean, it doesn't really if God told you to do something.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the ways that it depends.
Okay.
Right? Because in one situation, he might tell you not to. In another situation, he might tell you anything. Another situation, he don't say anything. Right? And you now have to figure it out yourself by doing your own self-assessment. What really is my heart here?
Motivation.
Don't.
So it's not do I eat fruit or not I eat fruit. It's why am I eating this fruit? And that's why it's so much. That's why I like Jesus' illustration of the log. Like, this log is so big, I don't even have space to consider your speck. Because I have to do all this motivation. Well, why am I here? What is happening with me? And it's not just in one situation. It's my desire to please me at the expense of God and my relationships and other people. And that can be so consuming that if you start taking your time, you miss all of that that's happening with you. And that's the same thing that's happening with everybody else. Like, everybody's dealing with that thing.
And the way I've always interpreted that verse is that just because you can't, I mean, if you have a log in your eye, you're dead. So, but that speck, you probably have the same speck, but it's so close to where you are. It's the appearance that is bigger, and you should always appear that whatever you're dealing with is bigger than whatever else someone else deals with.
By comparison, absolutely.
By comparison.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily that your problem is bigger. It just appears bigger. Right? So you don't even get into the, you at that point, you can't even compare whether a log is bigger than a speck. You probably have the same speck. Just don't pay attention. It appears bigger.
I think the more we realize that what they're doing is the same thing I'm doing, and I measure how successful was I today, do I have any real reason to be on them? Because I was not successful today. When I cussed that person out, I was not successful today. When I had that extra piece of cake, I was not successful today.
We not talking about me. We talking about you.
When I decided I wasn't going to do this thing, and I was just going to lay in bed and watch TV and leave this thing undone, I was not successful today because I know better. I am no different than the person who did that other thing that is offensive to me. I move differently. And then when I go, how did Jesus react to me? Because that's his command. A new command I give you, as I have loved you, so you must love one another. When I was unsuccessful today, for the 6th time for the day, what did he do for me? What did he do to me, and how did he regard me? What did he say to me? how did he hold me accountable?
What's
Is that
interesting?
what I'm doing for that person?
When I was younger, when they used to do the tracks, you know, go out and give out the tracks. Like I never wanted to do that. Never wanted to do it.
No one did.
Because I would
Courtney did.
because I once again, like you're saying with the log, and it's like I'm not but for me to tell somebody else about whatever the Bible says or what whatever, knowing that I'm not doing all of it, right? And not in the sense of perfection, but I mean I may not have even been doing like 40% of it. You know what I mean? Like so to even go out there and pass out tracts and be like, hey, you know, the Bible and Jesus and and then they'll usually have their questions and stuff. Like it made me uncomfortable because it was like, well, I can't tell you to do anything, like, because I'm still, I still got my own stuff. Like I can't tell you anything, and I still to this day, honestly, still have that kind of like mindset. Like I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I can share my experience. I can give my testimony. I can tell you what I've learned, where I've grown, but that's all I could give you. The Holy Spirit had to take the rest of that because I'm not there to educate, to teach, to like that's me. That's Lorraine. That's my.
So the instruction that we are given is really just that. It's to witness. It's nothing more than that. Now, witness could be teaching, but it could just be sharing experience. And I think sometimes we overburden ourselves beyond the witness. If you don't have the knowledge to witness, then your witness is false, right? Because you don't have the experience. A witness is a person firsthand. So it's really wherever I am as I grow, I share that. I once was blind and now I see. I don't know if he's the Messiah or not. That's a question to talk to Courtney about. I could tell you that I ran into him. I was blind and now I see. And maybe if you have blindness, or maybe if your foot broke, you should probably go and check him because I hear about the chick who was bleeding and she touched him and he could help you with that. And if you want to learn more, call Courtney. Right? And then when I learned more, I was like, I once was blind, but now I see. But I could share a little bit more than I could last week if you're interested. Because I have this experience now. I think one of the things, in addition to teaching sin poorly, I think we also don't, we burden people with this presentation that we're supposed to be given, and it's not what is being asked of us. What's being asked of us is to witness. Acts 1:8, and you shall be my witnesses in Judea, Jerusalem, and to the ends of the world, where you live at home, in your neighborhood, and then to the ends of the earth. Witness, first-hand experience. That's it. And as you grow and you learn more, you give more. And so if you don't have it to give, then you don't give it, and it's okay. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a false witness.
Like I got the tracks, but I ain't got the words. Just read the paper. Read the paper.
So you actually thought a lot about it. I didn't want to do it because I was like, this is corny. And
That is the only reason why I didn't want to do it.
yeah, I was like, that it wasn't even.
It was awkward to just walk up to strangers and have that conversation. I
You were
agree.
a thinker, yeah.
You were expecting me to converse. I'm just trying to drop off.
It's some broke Stacey Adams and some. I'm good.
All right. Go ahead, Kendrick.
No, I use a lot of people all the time. Be like, yeah, we went to a wedding. Like, dang, y'all got weddings every week? Be like, we know a lot of people. I wasn't telling nobody I was going to church. I'm like, Doing none of that.
Oh my god.
I was not a good witness.
All right, it's 10:30. Let's see what we going home with from these conversations. Lauren, I'm gonna start with you. You were asking the bulk of the questions towards the end. What are you going home with?
My brain has 1,000 questions.
All right, that's all right.
I still have 1,000 questions. So my takeaway is gonna be the love others the way I have loved you is not added to another verse that the Lord has been like. I think I said it a couple sessions before, where He says, "Whatever you do to the least of these." So it's like, okay, what should you do to the least of these? Love them the way I have loved you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my takeaway.
Good. Sharika?
Hey, you making equations out this joint?
My takeaway is that it's just a reminder that Christianity is it's a single walk, a single game. It's not a multi-person sport.
Tell me more about that, because I'm inclined to disagree with you to some degree, but I would like to understand what you're saying before I say that.
What Kenrick and Jared and Jerome and Cliff are doing have no weight on whether or not I get saved or not.
Ah, yes. Absolutely. Jerry?
You're muted.
Yeah, it's trying to unmute. I think I'm in the same boat with Lori, and I have a whole bunch. But um, just the way you kind of summarized what agape should look like. Yeah, it really is more principled, less emotive. And I was just reflecting on how even today, with the times I failed today, that is exactly what was extended to me to demonstrate how I am to extend it to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing where it calls for selflessness because it's funny. I appreciate the fact that it was extended to me, but then sometimes when I have to extend it to others, it's almost like,
You not deserve it, man.
yeah. So
That's why you have to be more like God the Father, Jerome.
more like
The Father, not the Son.
Gosh.
how so?
Oh my gosh. Please don't.
Open up the earth. Follow them whole. The
That's
end.
what?
Open the earth. Follow them whole.
Yo, listen, left up to me,
Smart.
it would be open earth 24/7.
Lot's wife these Bamas and keep it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Carry on.
But yeah, that lots wife.
Just sit.
I take away number two.
You just keep it moving.
Oh,
Cliff,
They wanted it.
you were quiet today, just nodding and shaking your head.
I, I was just receiving everything, man. Just kind of listening and taking it in. I think some of the stuff that I was saying, I was just saying offline. It was just kind of made me laugh. But I think my takeaway, following behind Jerry is and Sharika is that I can't big my back in the name of agape if
Mm.
person receiving it doesn't understand the meaning behind it.
Wow.
No, I'm joking. No, my
That's a
real.
That's a word, folks. That's
I
a
receive it.
word.
I receive it.
I receive it. Leave it where it is.
in Jesus' name.
Those look, my
Amen.
real takeaway really is I got to stay connected to the vine in order to produce the right fruit. That's my takeaway. My real takeaway.
So I ain't gonna lie to you, Cliff. I wouldn't have said it like that, but that was my takeaway as well. That pearl swine thing
Yeah.
that Sharika unpacked today. I always read it and just saw them as collections of sayings, but I never saw it in connection to words before and realized, oh, this is connected, and I don't really know how. And she kind of unpacked that, and that was my takeaway. They're not really going to value your help to take their log out of their eye. They're going to treat it like trash. So, and tear you to pieces about it. So, you know, yeah. That whole perception of value is key for me. So, thank you for that. I just went, but I'm gonna go to Trisha next. She's a little quiet today, but I'm gonna ask her to share what she was, absorbing when she was quiet today.
I think I'm quiet most of the times, but
Sorry.
Now, ma'am. Now,
Wow.
ma'am.
So lies are your takeaway?
Okay.
Like,
I mean, I'm not sure where we're going with this one.
he's gonna come out as the false prophet?
Like, just want some clarification here.
I just want to know because that was
I feel like those are facetious comments that require no rebuttal.
I just see a
I'm not
wolf.
even
I
gonna
just see a
address
I
them.
just see a I see a wolf.
Ravenous. Ravenous.
Well played, well played.
People can change, so if that's the case,
Yeah.
I don't know, but
True that.
I'm not gonna rebut it. But honestly, I just was thinking, treat people how you want to be treated. That's it.
Well,
That's it's really simple for me. After all is said and done, and after all I listen to, it's just treat people how you want to be treated. You don't want to be treated like crap. Don't treat anybody like crap. I think we overcomplicate it, with the Bible verses and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that none of that matters because it does, but literally, it just I feel like not the Bible verses. We overcomplicate what Jesus' representation here on earth is, and for me personally, it's just as simple as treat people how you want to be treated. You don't want to be treated like trash, don't go around handing out trash. If you go around handing out trash, I know that that's what you're doing, and that I need to exit stage left. It's just as simple as that. Keep it moving. That don't mean that I have to hand that back to you, because that's not me, but it's really that simple. Treat people how you want to be treated.
good. Karen?
Yeah, I think that um, what Jesus um, relayed to the disciples is very simple. It's not complicated. It's hard to do in life. That's why you know that joint's narrow. But
Mhm.
it's I think we overcomplicate it. So it's very simple
Mm. I wonder if we do overcomplicate because we don't understand it, Kenrick.
Was that?
I wonder if we overcomplicate it because we don't understand it.
No, I think we overcomplicate it just because in application it's hard.
Mm.
I think I think I think it's just it's it's difficult to um to perceive value, number one, in someone who's treating you like crap or trash, as the wolf said, and 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 so treating them with that value, right? Seeing it, number one, right, during those bad or hard times, and then treating them as if they're not that. I mean,
Mhm.
sorry, treating them as if they are that, you know, during while they're treating you like, whatever. So I think an application that becomes very difficult. And I think that's what complicates, because then you have all the justifications that you hear all the time as to why you can and why you should, and and it's the echo chamber that exists with, your friends and people that are close to you, like, yeah, that person can't treat you like that, da, 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 da. Right? It's all of that when that's literally not. So I think that's what in my opinion, that's what overcomplicates it. And it's very hard to do an application, but very simple, and as he laid it out.
Good. All right, Courtney, you got the last one.
All right. For me, that was interesting. This conversation of what were like expectations on uh just folks based on, I guess, the claims that you have on your life, whatever title or position. I think that was just interesting, just how that dynamic works. And for me, what I liked a lot was just talking about the fruit. Guess I never really looked at it as something to genuinely look at, a way to um, discern false prophets, really. Um, and I think overall, again, something simple enough, golden rule, but in that part of that agape that Jesus has for us, translating that to others. Um, and I guess lastly, that whole chapter, I think I'm about to save that in Hebrews, just about God's discipline, proving His love, not being I'll say as those that are believers at times, it's like I said, I know that there's a narrative out there, but it is love to actually um, kind of correct and to speak or rebuke or whatever it is for those that you care and have concern about. It's not just uh, you know, kind of turning a blind eye or kind of shying away from that confrontation. Uh, you know, regardless of that doesn't feel like love for that person.
It can be.
It can't be. Yeah,
It can also be very selfish.
could be. All right.
So yeah. Good, Courtney. Thank you. All right, Mezzo had shared a takeaway. She said, yes, she. Treat others as I would want to be treated. Stay true to what I believe and do my best to live up to what I profess. Reflect the love of God and forgive myself when I fall short. Word. Thank you for that. All right, all right. Anybody want to volunteer to pray for us to close out? All right. Bishop, since you are the default prayer,
I got you.
I'm going to tap you since nobody wanted to volunteer.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for another water for the thirsty. I want to thank you for allowing us to gather, for us to discuss, for us to open your word freely and just have moments of vulnerability. I ask that you continue to remind us until we meet again about the value of treating others the way we want to be treated, about recognizing your fruit, but also about minding our business sometime and realizing that the log in our eye is really a speck, but it's so darn close. Try not to miss it. I want to thank you for us being in community with each other. Please bless our families. Help that we may be safe and help that with everything we do, we don't forget the source of everything that we have. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you for that.
No.
April only had 4 Fridays, so we are on again the first Friday in May, which is May 3rd. Until that time, we will be reading from the reading plan and covering the books of First and Second Corinthians, Joshua, Judges, which I think we started since today's the 19th. So we have Judges now, Ruth and Samuel by the time we come back, and we'll still be reading Kenrick's favorite book, the Psalms. Kenrick, have you ever finished that whole book in the 10 years we've been doing it?
Finish what book?
The Psalms. Have you ever read like the whole thing all the way through?
My Bible only has 65 books.
Bro.
No judgment here.
No judgment. No judgment.
It's not quite the Apocrypha, but it's.
I got you. I got you. The one that's right in the middle doesn't exist.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for your comments. In the
That's
chat,
a
for
long-
those who were just listening, I appreciate you listening in. Kenrick, you gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say that's a long EP. That's just a lot of songs.
You had a little interludes and thing in there as well. So it's not all songs. Then some of the tracks is like extended play, like this.
Now,
Really
if they
long.
did like had an R&B like the '90s joints interludes, I would, right?
You know, if you could
maybe
read Hebrew,
maybe some mad rapper interludes, but
if you could read Hebrew, I'm sure it would sound like that.
Okay.
A lot of it is
All right.
lost in the translation.
Then I'll do that.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Until the next one, drink up, drink deeply, and we see you May 3rd. All right, here we go. Here we go. Yeah. I'm all over the place today.